Howdy, all you delicious people. I am here today to review Yellowstone Season 4, Episodes 5 and 6. So, going on, of course, into these episodes, it feels like we are wrapping up certain things for certain characters, but it also seems like we're introducing new characters for I don't know how long. Probably just an episode, maybe possibly more, question mark. We are also having closure for certain characters where I was immediately like, well, what is going to happen with Christina? And then all of a sudden, poof, closure moment happening. So, Christina, of course, if you don't remember, is the woman that is to be tied with Jamie, that is to possibly have a baby. We're going to see how that supposedly plays out in these episodes. We're also going to have a new person joining the cast called Piper Parabo. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. She's going to be playing a character called Summer Higgins, a protester that is to be also coincidentally a vegan, because we don't know much about this character, and so eventually we might get there. And so we also seem to have things finally coming to a head in these episodes. We end up having a battle that's been brewing for a while, just stewing away, and just, this guy should have been dead. This guy, this guy just wants to dance. I just know I have that feeling. So we have the moment where Jamie, of course, in the other episode, was to go through the paperwork and eventually find that Garrett is to be tied to a man called Terrell Riggins. And so we're going to have Jamie go on and talk to Terrell Riggins and kind of eventually get his statement, I guess, at some point. So I'll go and I'll talk about that in spoilers. So Terrell Higgins, if you guys don't remember who this person is, he of course was the militia guy who was telling people what to do via prison. So other than that, I am really enjoying what they're doing with Casey, Monica, Tate, Rainwater, Mo. I'm really liking how, the intelligence of the writing, where they keep mixing these characters in together. I'm really enjoying that. I really like the fact that, it's giving these characters all something to do, and it's all in one fell swoop of a thing. Because it seems that Rainwater is to have another case for Casey to look in on. And so I'm kind of wondering if, at this point, if it's possible that Rainwater is kind of doing this on purpose, for some weird reason. I don't know what it is. For the life of me, I'm thinking that Rainwater is just trying to get close to both Casey or Monica or Tate or, is that what's kind of happening here, or is it just a natural thing? I don't know. Because we have Rainwater, who his whole idea about that whole casino thing went completely up in flames, and we still don't know the whole progress of that. And I'm kind of waiting for us to get some kind of update about the whole casino thing. If Rainwater is just going to sell that whole thing down asunder because there's nothing he can do. I kind of want the closure for that, to just kind of see what they're really going to do. Or eventually have, Blue Thunder come back in and just hey, yeah, what's going on with this casino, so that we can kind of get a closure moment for that. So we also have Carter in these episodes learning the ropes of things, either metaphorically or literally learning the ropes. But we're also having Jimmy, who is to have his own separate story, go and be involved in the 6666 Wranglers. The like he's going to transition onto another barn so that way he can learn a thing or two to become a real cowboy. So, with that said, I think that's all I want to say about that right now, and then we'll get into spoilers about all this stuff. Because we have a lot to unpack in these episodes, because there's so many little bits and little. I'm going to tell you right now that this episode of stuff, when I go into spoilers, will not be for perfectly said. So, by golly, go and watch these episodes if you have never heard of them in your life, and watch them and get inside them and just enjoy them for what they are. And then come back here and then listen to my garbity gook of going through and have to just like mow down through these episodes. Like, yeah, let's focus on this one event because it's probably the only thing that comes into my mind fairly quickly for this episode. And then I just keep marching and carving through all of these events till I eventually realize that I'm like, okay, there's nothing else for me to talk about until I have a rebuttal for whatever thing is to be the next episode. Luckily, I feel like I've covered everything normally on these. Like, very rarely do I have a rebuttal. Like, I know there's sometimes when I do, like, a movie review, and I'll realize that there's something that slipped my mind, and I'll have to go back, or I'll just be like, oh well, like, I don't think that's a big enough part of the film. But, like, I think I cover everything that I usually cover through here, but I don't know. Not everything is perfect. Not everything is heavily detailed. But let's detail our way to go out of our way to go into that double five. Let's just go into spoilers. Thank you, anybody, for watching me just blah, 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 blah about all this. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully we can go on to consistently get to the current or the most current episode. And yeah, so let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I get to spoil this episodes. So let's go on first. Let's cover like the beginning of the episode is having John Dutton go on and basically get ready for bed. Guys to go on and like take his clothes off, get into a shower, get out of his shower, and all of a sudden Beth is like right there in his room, and it's like, yeah, like I wish I wouldn't have had to see your wang, Dad. I wish I wouldn't have had to see that whole anatomy right then and there. And so John is like, Beth, me and your talks, Idalia. So we have John go and get his PJs on and is to go on and talk to Beth. And so, since there's nobody in this house, John is just eating alone. And, like, it's so sad and it's so depressing. Where John is just, hello, 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 hello. The ranch is empty. So Beth is with John, and so Beth is saying that she's concerned that the ranch will eventually just pick up and run away because nobody's really living in it. So Beth had decided to just go and have one night where she's going to go on and sleep in the ranch so that way John can have some kind of company. And so John's going on. It's like, well, hey, well, I can prepare a bed for you. And Beth is like, well, hey, I'm I'm a couple of drinks close to like falling asleep, anyways, blacking out or whatever. So we end up having John asking Beth what book she's reading, and she is to go on and read a passage of it to like talk about solace and so on and so forth. So eventually, John is to go to sleep, and Beth is to, of course, continue to read her book until she falls asleep. So we go on and have the next day where now Carter is to learn how to do things. Carter is to go and learn how to saddle a horse. And so Rip, who is kind of rubbed the wrong way by Lloyd, Rip is kind of making Lloyd doing a lot of tasks because because of the whole like him fighting thing. Really had Rip force Lloyd to be kind of the low guy on the totem pole, and now Rip is telling Lloyd to do everything because it's like, hey, like you're back on the low totem pole of things. So Lloyd is showing Carter how to saddle a horse, and there's so many like different rungs of names of things where they call one part a D ring, and they end up calling uh like any number of any number of stuff. I'm not going to go through the specifics because why would I memorize all that? Um, but yeah, we had the kid who ends up memorizing the whole thing, so good for him. And so we have, of course, first Lloyd telling him the name of all the stuff, and then they go and they take the saddle and go and toss it onto the horse, and then we have Lloyd who's going on and teaching Carter how to saddle this horse, and he's telling him that certain characters on this show have certain kinds of saddles, but the field hand guys are to saddle their own horses, and so he doesn't need to worry about all the names of their saddles because they'll figure out by themselves, of course, who is to have what saddle. So we go on and we have John who's seeing that Lloyd and Carter are, of course, doing this whole saddle thing, and John is to tell him, it's like, I don't know if I want him like saddling my horse. So, because we have Rip who's telling John, it's like, well, yeah, like Carter's still in trouble, and so we have it where eventually John is talking to Carter, and John is getting on his horse, and he's telling him like, yeah, yeah, boy, because his name is still Boy here. Boy, you better go and get ugly. And Carter's like, well, why? Like, handsome is the only thing that I have on a plus side. And John is like, well, that's why I told you to get ugly, because so that way you can come up with something else as a plus side to you. Which I thought that was kind of funny, that whole exchange there. It'll be interesting to see kind of where they go with Carter in these episodes, and like how they, because it feels that like since Jimmy is gone from this ranch, having Carter here is the Jimmy equivalent technically, like a person they can teach and kind of give somebody like a common knowledge kind of breakdown kind of thing. And I like that for like, I wish that they probably would have gone and done it sooner, but like it's kind of cool to have them showcase how like something as what would be a simple thing of saddling a horse isn't all that simple, and how everything that everybody does is to be like a complex thing. And that's the thing that I can like about this show is they're actually showing that, oh yeah, it seems really easy, but it's actually not. And so I kind of like this stuff. Like I kind of like how they're uh, kind of breaking it down uh, to where it's just like, oh yeah, it may look easy on the show, but it's not easy, and that's the thing that I like. Um, so we let's cover the Casey stuff. So Casey goes on to, of course, be living with Monica's grandfather, Felix. And so it seems that Tate is going into some sweat lodge with Rainwater, Mo, and Tate. So they evidently have gone through a sweat lodge, or what? I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. For supposedly 4 days. Man, that seems like a lot. So it seems anything more than 1 day would probably seem like a lot, but four, I'm like, holy crap! Like, were they just kind of sleeping in there? And that's probably like a common thing, I guess. So we have these guys kind of sweating it out, and so Monica goes on and talks to Rainwater and is kind of like talking to him about Tate. And Rainwater is saying that Tate had to go and like be a man and do so many things uh, that it's kind of good that he's going back to just being this boy again. And like that this whole stuff will kind of help kind of bringing him back to some kind of resemblance of him acting his own age. So we also go on and have Casey, who wants Monica and Tate to just kind of like, you know what, like how about we just go and like rent something, like move somewhere. And like these are people that have moved so often and so much. And so it's also kind of weird because like Casey was saying to John, it's like, hey, we'll be back soon, but then they turn around and now they're renting a house. And so Casey, Monica, and Tate go into this house and is to find this dog there. And so they go on and like, hey, what's gonna be the name of this dog? It's like, I don't know, dog. All right, simple enough. So we also have Casey, who of course is doing quite a few things here. Casey is to go on to try to make it to work to eventually find out that there's a big, massive amount of protesters there. And so Casey can't even get to his office, and he's wanting to just arrest people because they're kind of blocking certain entrances and exits to a government building. So Casey is to try to scare off people because like he's kind of getting freaked out by them, where these people are going and slapping blood on their chests and eventually like throwing a rock at Casey. And so Casey's had enough. He's shooting guns in the air And so we have Summer Higgins that is to get arrested along with some other women. And so we have Casey who calls Ryan and calls John to make their way to where Casey is to like have them kind of figure out what's going on here. So John is to go on and talk to Summer, and Summer is to mention that these women who are to seemingly not be wearing tops are doing that for a reason. And so I'm just like, well, okay, like, because John was wanting to like, hey, like I can get them a sheet or something, or a bed sheet or something to like cover up, and Summer's like, no, like they're doing that for a reason. They're kind of declothing for, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So we have John turn around and have Summer get arrested, but then he goes on to bail her out and then eventually sleeps with her. Because John is to ask Summer, it's like, well, hey, can you come with me on my ranch so I can show you a thing or two? Kind of tell you that like these guys aren't all like horrible meat eaters, and that like not all of it is um, to be what maybe possibly Summers to think is really going on here. That maybe cowboys are all are good people. So, and then we eventually have Beth, who is to uh, go into the ranch and is to grab a knife. Is to grab a freaking knife because Summer is in the ranch, and then all of a sudden John is to come and be like, hey, like she's a girl that was here the night before, and I gave her a shirt because her shirt was filled with mace and blood and whatever. So like I just lent her some clothes, and so Beth is like, man, if you're effing this woman, you could have gotten a lot better hooker. And so both Summer and Beth are kind of talking about their chest sizes, let's just say. And so, like, both of them are kind of at one another's throats, both Summer and Beth. And eventually, when they go and sit at the dinner table, Summer, of course, is to be a vegan. And so now the guy who's kind of doing the orders for the food now has to figure out a way to accompany Summer with her vegan lifestyle. So we have Beth who's mentioning it's like, well, hey, how about we just go and grab wheatgrass and just go and put that in a blender for you? Like that should work, right? So because this girl, she doesn't need gluten. She did like so. Like we have the guy who doesn't even know what gluten even is. No one does. So nobody, not even the people who eat gluten free stuff, are like, I don't know what this is. I'm joking. So we go on, and so let's back it up a little bit here. So uh, so of course in this episode we have Jamie, who is to go to Terrell Riggins and is to be calling this prison warden to ask if Terrell Riggins is going to have a public defender or some kind of counsel of sorts. And because Jamie is to say for Terrell Riggins that he's going to offer him immunity if he makes uh, a I want to say claim, but I want to say like a testimony or something like that. Like for his involvement in the attempted murder of John Dutton. And so Jamie is to go to meet Terrell Riggins, and so they kind of break down what exactly it means for Terrell to get immunity, that he will eventually go on and get uh, kind of protection and all these kinds of things. So we have Jamie going and asking Riggins if his father was the one to have Terrell go off and get these militia members to go after the Dutton family, and we end up finding out that that's true. And so in the next episode, we have Jamie coming back home, or no, in this still episode, we have Jamie coming back home to possibly have Jamie confronting his father, to all of a sudden see Christina there and say like, "Hey, like now that you're like away from this Dutton family, like you know what? I'm gonna live up to my promise and like have you meet your kid, your child." And so Christina is to go on and seemingly want to live with Jamie in some kind of capacity of sorts. So in the next episode, we have Jamie going and talking to his father, and Jamie holds a gun on him, and he's going to arrest him for the attempted murder of the Dutton family. And so Garrett is like, "Hey, like, go on and just shoot me. Like, go on and just shoot me. Like, I don't care. Like, I helped you, like, build all of this. Like, I helped you build this house. I helped you, like, build the relationship back up with Christina. Like, I help you, like, built all of this because you couldn't have been bothered to. And, like, I've built you back up a family, which is you and me. Because like those people, the Dutton family, they weren't your family." And Jamie's like, "Well, like technically my brother loves me," and like Garrett is like, "Well, really, does he? Does he love you? Does he really love you? Is he really your family?" Where we just have Garrett who is just manipulating Jamie, because technically there's a lot about that is actually right in some ways. And that, yeah, like this family is quick to really just need him for things, and that's usually it. When the cards are down, Jamie can at some point turn to that family, but more often than not, the only probably reason why that Jamie was to have had this family help him with this murder was simply because that murder had tied in to that family anyways, because the woman that was the news reporter was to have this a story about this family. So Jamie killing this woman did have the family tied to that, but really after that moment, like every single like I don't know how many times where Jamie is always just like, "Hey, I need you for this, I need you for that" kind of guy, the gopher guy, and he's not really a family member guy. Like John has really softened up on Beth and like not have her be the just gopher girl. And so and then like Casey, it seems that John had softened up on like Casey a lot too. And so, but John is still just like, I don't know about that Jamie kid. Like, he's basically not really my blood, anyways. And, like, even where John is kind of treating Rip like a son most of the time, or half of the time, even though weirdly he's going to be married to uh, his daughter soon, which is kind of weird, but it is what it is. So, we go on and we have Jimmy, who, of course, is to go to this 4-6's ranch, and he is to become a cowboy. And so all of a sudden, we have Jimmy kind of sleeping on this, like sleeping on this ground, and all of a sudden, there's this centipede that's kind of crawling on him. And so all of a sudden, Ross is to wake up, and it's still Jimmy. It's like, well, hey, like until you go and you find whatever your job is here, you might as well just kind of find a bench and just kind of rest there until like something works out. So Jimmy is going and talking to this guy Ross, who's to mention that like being a cowboy is hard work. It's going to take every inch of your life, and it's going to be a thing that you'll never get an audience to like see you like doing these things, even though technically you do have an audience because this is a show. And that eventually you'll die, and once you die, like you'll still never, like it's a thankless job that that you'll just that once you die, it's like you're just poof, like nothing will ever matter anymore because you'll be gone. So now Ross is telling, of course, Jimmy that he needs to really like take this time here and really think if cowboying is really what he wants to do, because Ross is to know that if someone drops him off here, it's to make him become a cowboy because he isn't. So we go on and we have Jimmy, who is kind of just sleeping on these benches and sleeping on these places, and having eventually Jimmy going and hearing these conversations and stuff like that going on with Ross and some other man. And so all of a sudden, Jimmy eventually is to go on to meet the person that is going to hire him here. And so Jimmy on the following episode goes on to like get up in the morning, get a certain thing of food, and go on and uh, seemingly have like kind of people like kind of tell him what to do or show him the ropes, like something as simple as like, hey, like take your hat off while you're eating breakfast or eating dinner or eating food here. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So we eventually have Jimmy, who makes his way back to the place that he's sleeping in to eventually get some kind of like tinfoiled meal. And so like Jimmy's kind of tinfoiling this up and just kind of scarfing it down. It's like, oh my god, like this meal. And we even have at one point where when Jimmy is to be kind of like finished for his day, like we just kind of like see him just kind of like, all my back, all my this, all my that, kind of just trying to like walk off what he's trying to do, because I'm sure it's a really difficult job. So, and eventually this will seem to lead us to Jimmy going on and finding another uh, woman to woo at some point. because Maya is going and leaving the ranch because when stuff starts to happen with Lloyd and Walker, which I'll get to that soon, Maya ends up leaving the ranch, and we end up having some other people starting to leave right around this time also. So, so I'm just trying to think if there's anything that I need still to cover with this first episode. Uh, Beth is to, of course, go on and take the position that Warner is to give her. And so Beth is to go on to meet Bob and tell Bob, hey, Bob, yeah, that seat that you're sitting in, that's my seat. And Bob's like, what are you talking about? And so Beth goes on and tells him that she had taken the job for market equities and that Bob is fired. And then Beth goes through and fires Bob's assistant because she's a nosy woman, let's just say. And so Beth goes through and tells everybody, yeah, all this crap, like, move it to Montana. All this stuff, move it to conveniently be where I'm at. Like, if you're gonna have to move it into the ranch, I don't give a just like, like Montana. So, so like that's kind of sad because when really looking at it, for how much Beth and Bob like I'm sure like they had become really good friends. It's kind of sad to just kind of see this moment kind of fuse out where Bob is just kind of fired and like that's all we're gonna get for this character possibly. So yeah. With that said, I think that covers the bulk of this episode 5. I think we can go on to episode 6 and kind of go on to the battle that, of course, is to be both Lloyd and both Lloyd and Walker. And I think that's going to be my focus thing here. So we end up having, of course, both. We have Lloyd, who is at the bare bottom of the totem pole, and also on episode 6, we're gonna have a closure moment because Casey is to go on and do this case, which is to eventually have us get Avery as a little closure moment, which is kind of nice. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. So, but let's cover the Lloyd and Walker thing first. So, Lloyd and Walker are just really just the seething hatred brewing between them. Because Lloyd and Carter are practicing roping, and Lloyd and Carter are talking it out about how, like, what Carter should do to win over Beth and figure out a way to, like, apologize to her. And so Lloyd is teaching Carter how to rope and to get the cattle. And it's probably something that they have to, like, non-stop just practice all of the time. And so we have Lloyd who's doing these certain kind of techniques and stuff to show Carter because Carter like can't get certain techniques all that well. So, but it seems that eventually Carter is kind of picking things up. So after Lloyd is to go on and talk to Carter about things, And like we both see that Lloyd and Carter are kind of outcasts here, and that Lloyd is kind of saying it's like, well, hey, like you could probably go and sleep at Beth's house at any time, but like you're just kind of just wanting to just separate yourself from Beth and Rip. So, and Lloyd is kind of technically doing the same thing where he's like forcibly trying to separate himself from the whole group because he just doesn't want to get into a fight with Walker. So after Lloyd has the conversation with Carter, Lloyd is to, of course, see uh, that Walker is to have set up this bonfire to have him and Lorelai go and just rest by this bonfire and kind of sleep under the stars instead of going on and sleep in the trailer like they have been doing. And Lorelai's like, well, why not like just go back and sleep in the trailer? And Walker's just like, well, like that's such a small space. So maybe Walker's claustrophobic. Who knows? I don't know. We'll figure that out maybe in some other episode. So Lloyd is still just being freaking aggravated with Walker. And so we end up having a moment where we have Lloyd who's trying to get back into the bunkhouse and trying to get back with people, but he still feels like an outcast. And so we have a moment where the guys I think are playing poker, and Walker is going and playing this little tune, and so Lloyd goes on and grabs uh, Walker's guitar and crashes it and smacks it and breaks it, and I'm like, yeah. Because I figured it was only a matter of time before something like that was going to happen. Like, I was just waiting and, like, thinking that eventually someone is going to come in and break that guitar, and now they did. So, like, is it also me, or, like, is the guy who plays Walker, is he doing, like, commercials right now? Because I think I had seen Walker the guy who plays Walker, I'd seen him on like certain commercials for like maybe he was on some uh like I want to say it was like canned water commercials or something like that. Like I think he was doing something. But anyways, because his voice sounded much more familiar on some commercial that I saw him do. So, but yeah, so once Lloyd breaks the guitar, that's when we have like round two fight kind of thing going on here, where Lloyd and Walker are to confront one another, and so Walker is to say that he's met so many guys like Lloyd in prison, and that Lloyd goes on and takes his knife and is to stab Lloyd into the chest. And so now we're running off to have Walker go to the vet. And Walker's like, no, I'm not going to go to the vet. Like, bring me to an actual doctor. And so, but no, like, they take him to the vet. And so they end up sewing him up. And Lorelai ends up, like, taking the knife and ripping it out of, like, Walker. And so they end up, like, sewing him up. And Lloyd is being cuffed, and so now it just gets down to the point where both Walker and Lloyd, this whole thing is escalating so badly now that even John has to now get involved in this. And so Rip and John are aware of this situation, And so we have John who's like, well, you know what? If this is if this is Walker, and Walker started all of this, like, what would you guys do? It's like we would probably like do the exact same like. So John is realizing that Walker is a problem person, and John is like, why is he still here? Like, why isn't he dead somewhere, or why isn't he just taken care of? Or when it just comes down to it, it's like, why not just nip this in the butt and then just kill a number of people horrifically? So we go on and we have John telling Rip to get rid of all the girls, to fire all of them, even Teeter. And Rip is like, well, wait, Teeter is a really good hand. And John's like, I don't care, get rid of all of them. And so Rip goes on and is to just start handing out pink slips to everybody. Like, hey, like, uh, Rip goes on and gives Lorelai Mia's pink slip because she's gone. And so we now have, of course, John, who had told Rip to go and bring both Lloyd and Walker into uh, this one part for them to just go at it until they couldn't go anymore. To just kind of resolve this thing and to just have them eventually just be like not probably friends, but like to just kind of resolve all this. So, because Walker now is to realize that the only thing that he had to fight for had already left. Lorelai is gone now, and so like, why is even Walker wanting to actually fight here? So, but you would think that maybe Walker being ticked that all of a sudden his girlfriend is now gone would probably give him a reason to fight. So we go on and we have them non-stoppingly fighting, and so Carter wants to just kind of look away from this fighting, and Rip is like, no, like, here's one lesson that you won't have to get hurt to learn. So like, you go on and you watch this fight. So we have Lloyd and we have Walker just fighting it out, spitting blood and all kinds of things. So we have them consistently fighting it out, and so it eventually gets to where eventually Dawn is to kind of check up on the fight, and Ryan's like, thank God, like they've been going at it for so long now. So John's like, hey, what's going on, Rip? And so Walker eventually is to get tired and is to not really want to like fight anymore, but Lloyd just won't give up. So John is to go in there and start putting on some gloves, and he's like, "Yeah, like I'm gonna go and finish it." And Rip's like, "No, like if anything, like they're gonna hate you if you do it. So like I'll do it." So Rip goes on, and he ends up telling Lloyd like he loves him. And here's the one thing that bugged me. Like, Rip is gonna, like, beat the crap out of Lloyd, supposedly, with his sunglasses on. And, like, dude, like, I would have taken off those sunglasses and, like, put them in your coat or something. I don't know. Like, I guess, like, Rip is like, dude, I don't have to take my sunglasses off to beat the crap out of somebody. But that's Rip. Like, Rip could probably beat somebody up. Like, he's kind of like Orange Cassidy, if you guys have ever seen AEW, where the guy is to just wrestle people with sunglasses on and his hands in his pockets. So because that's what he's usually known for. So Rip goes on and is to punch out Lloyd, but after he does that, he ends up hugging Lloyd and tells him he loves him. But then he punches him out, and then I think he ends up like breaking a part of his hand to just kind of like make him stop and teach him a lesson here. So Lloyd is to go and pick up Walker, and it seems like this fight is to be done. And really, the main reason why both John and Rip were so hard on Lloyd was because him out of everybody should know about fighting, and that's why they have to be so hard on Lloyd compared to everybody else. So that seems to be resolved, but we'll eventually see how further along that this story could eventually still play out here, and we'll see where this all heads, because maybe just because of somebody winning something, uh, or technically winning, means nothing here, but still. Uh, but pushing on. So, we, in this episode, are to. I think I've covered most of this stuff. Uh, I think. We have Summer who had gotten arrested, and John had decided to. No, I think we covered that, where John is to bail her out and go on and kind of show her some part of his ranch, and have Rip kind of fixing this fence because one small little bit of cattle ended up getting out, and Summer's to realize that both of these guys are to love doing what they're doing, and that Summer is to want to just kind of walk and hitchhike her way to wherever. Yeah, I think I covered most of that. So let's cover the Avery thing. So it seems that there had been some cattle going missing, or I want to see some cattle or some horses or something going missing, and so this is on some reservation, and so rainwater got involved. But we have Casey, who is to go on and be involved in this case anyways, because technically where these things were to go off to is technically in Casey's jurisdiction, so he can technically get involved in this case. And so Casey's with Monica and Tate yet again here, and so all of a sudden, when he is to go and find out who's in this house, because these people are afraid to come out and talk to these people, because I guess a white man with a badge, Casey is to go off to meet and greet who these people are, to find out that one of the people are to actually be Avery. And so Casey's like, "Hey, Avery, yeah, it's nice to kind of see you here." And so they're kind of catching up and whatever. And so all of a sudden, we have Monica, who's just kind of a little bit jealous of seeing Avery, who is to basically be like a spitting image kind of thing of Monica. And we have, of course, Monica going and telling Casey, it's like, "Hey, this girl's technically your type, and were you and her kind of?" And Casey's like, "No, she's not my type." And Monica's like, "She's your type." And Tate's like, "Yeah, she is beautiful. I would like me some of that." And they're just like, "Really, really, Tate?" So, uh, so Casey is like, "God, we're gonna have a long way home." So eventually, Tate is going on and having some time with Monica, where Monica is like, "Well, hey, was she your woman?" And Casey is just like, "Well, technically, like, you're my woman, so no. And like they have that moment where they're just kind of like making up for the fact that like that Casey is to eventually try to win back over his wife Monica, as if they weren't gonna like consistently like work this over. But I don't know why they spent so much or so long going into that whole argument. But I guess that's what it is with a married couple. I guess like, hey, like, were you like, you know, um, so yeah, I think I covered uh most the stuff here, because like the real like pretty much everything that happens in like the last episode I covered in the other thing. So yeah, because most of the stuff is to kind of deal with the Garrett Jamie family, which I kind of covered all of that. Uh, there might have been something there that I might have forgot about, but I think everything else is to roughly be covered. And if not, the whole Rip and Beth thing. So Beth is going on with Rip, and so Beth is mentioning that she wants to go on a ride somewhere. And Rip is like, "What are you talking about? You're getting me nervous, like talking about what you're talking about." And so Beth goes on, and I think what she's saying is she wants for them to get like an oasis, like a place away from the ranch and a place that doesn't have a horrible amount of memories for both of them. And so Rip is like, "Well, I think I know a place. Like I think I know somewhere where we can go." And when really looking at this, we have so many people that are going out of their way to try to leave this ranch, to where what's really the point of John keeping this ranch when nobody wants to be in it? We're like, does John even want to be on the ranch anymore? Like, uh, we have it where like I just don't quite understand why John is like viciously defending this ranch that nobody wants to be at. Nobody wants to live in it. Nobody wants to like really keep it alive besides John. And because nobody sees the ranch like he does. So everybody's just seeing it as like, man, this was a place that somebody died, or I had to kill somebody, or I had to beat somebody, I had to fight somebody, or something. Like, there's always that kind of thing here. So with that said, yeah, I think that covers most of the stuff that happens here. Uh, but other than that, I think there's going to possibly be a rebuttal coming if there's anything else that I had forgotten about. But without a doubt, I think most of this stuff's covered. Most of it's done and over with. So with that said, I think I'm going to leave. So yeah, on to the what is almost close to the brand new episodes of Yellowstone. So this is cool to eventually kind of get to a like hopefully a way of being able to easily get every one of these done and get them all accomplished. So that way I can kind of get to the where I'm just kind of doing one episode, because that would be a refreshing thing. Because normally I'd have to go through so many stories in two episodes. So it's cool to just break down. Like all I have to do is break down one episode. Man, is that going to be easy? So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.